Greetings, everyone. Today is November 15th, 2017. I have been drawn back to look at some material I received from Thoth in 1973. Now, that doesn't make sense, actually, because I thought I first connected to Thoth in 1977. So this is a shock to me, 1973. I'll have to look into that. But that's what I see. I'm reading from actually something that was written in 1993. I think I must have made a typo or something there because I'm just sure that Thoth did not present himself to me until 1977. So that is an old typo, way back in 1993 typo. So anyway, it was in the 1970s, and this was right after he began to actually communicate with me. So when he did, whether it was me or him or in between or whatever, it was very, his wording or the wording I received or I was working with, whatever, was very dense. I mean, it was just difficult to understand. So I'm going to read this slowly because it's going to be difficult to understand. It was very wordy. As I worked with him, I kind of got out of that. Now, I had been already, doing transmissions with the ultras that were working before him, and that wasn't the case with them at all. So when I started working with Thoth, it got really difficult to understand the wording. And then it got better after we worked together for a while. So this is the old stuff, and that's why it sounds a little wordy here. So this is Thoth speaking, so to speak. The emerald seal, he's talking about the emerald seal of Thoth. The emerald seal is a cast of the authority of the office of Thoth, which is my designate in the archetypal manifest given forth from the hierarchy of the divine Christ. The emerald ray is the radiant mergence of the golden ray of Michael as it strikes the pure life force within the race house of the solaria, which radiant rays are gold, blue, and violet. The synergized quality of this interpolation is the emerald ray, which is a crystallized higher form of the green ray. Now, obviously, gold, blue, and violet don't make green. I don't think it does. You couldn't swear it by me. I don't know what colors make what colors, but I don't think that's true. Anyway, however, he's not saying that. He's saying the synergized quality of this interpolation produces the emerald ray, which is a crystallized higher form of the green ray. The position of my office in the stations of hierarchical government is within the 8th sphere or circumvention of the sacred harmonies. Herein rests the full cycle, the beginning of the opposite house. As the last house is dissension, or the opposite of, is dissension, or the opposite is ascension. Now, I'm wondering, it has a little asterisk there. I want to see what it says here. And I'm not seeing where that asterisk lies, because I don't think that's correct. You know what I think it's supposed to mean? Descending and ascending, ascension, and the opposite of it, and that's just completely misspelled and strange there. So, and that would have been my fault in the interpretation. Okay, let's continue. Understand that within the records of Thoth, as I was in the age of Egypt, I give the eighth sphere as, turning page, oops, sorry about that, it's old paper, very old, it's getting yellow in my hand, which is not encouraging for my lifespan to think that I've lived long enough that I wrote something on paper that's turning yellow now. Anyway, I gave the eighth sphere as to that which the soul ascends. See, we're talking about ascension here, not ascend. Well, anyway, ascension. Indeed, from the perspective of resurrection, so it is in the ascension, for the eighth sphere is the capstone of the ether pyramid from which both ascending and descending is active. Ascension and descension. He basically, these are words that have been made up between us, I guess, Thoth and me, to try to describe some high level astrology. It's, like the ascending house and all of that. That's what I think is trying to be used here. The eighth sphere is neither that which was nor that which is becoming. It is the pause in between, the essential eighth chord of rest. The three circles, gold, golden, blue, and violet, represent the passage or orbit of the three race rays of my lineage. Through the activity of my race rays and through the generative forces is the completion of the sacred harmonies made manifest. Outside the spheres is the golden circle representing the ray of the race source, which descends through the 8 spheres to become generative in the radiance of the blue ray. Within the sphere circle moves the violet ray, that of the habitation or physical active association with Earth. The center of the seal reveals the Solomonic template, identifying with the central sun and being raised upward on pillars of telluric force through the elemental matrix, ultimately to be wed with the pillars of force through the elemental matrix. No, I'm sorry, I reread that. Ultimately to be wed with the pillars of force through the cosmic sun. The geometric vectors of the Solomonic temple find the form of the seal so that it radiates a set vibration, which is attuned to the pristine fluid of the primal matter. This original fluid, unbinding, in parentheses, unbinding, and matter binding, is the embodied externalization of creation. Through the exchange between fluid and matter, the continuity of source structure of archetypal infinity is assured. Now, when he's speaking of fluid, he's not speaking of liquid as we know it. It's some kind of a fluid energy, I would imagine. Light is the third element of the sacred tree. It strikes the resonant atoms of fluid and matter and activates the exchange process. This process is the inertia, the selective dividing and multiplying of internal pattern, both genetic and kinetic, which maintains the survival of the first principle from which all is born and reborn. The two are undivided in ray power, and two contain both positive and negative poles. And V2, I'm not sure exactly. I told you this was not easy to understand. The whole interacts with the divided, and current is exchanged. The whole is the fluid outside the spheres. No, the whole, I'm sorry, let me try this again. The whole is the fluid unbinding symbol The divided binding is the matter. The eight inverted pyramids outside the sphere are the descending radiation from the cosmic sun. Each inverted pyramid contains a sacred alchemical symbol of its generative power. About the seal is the symbolic feathered serpent, which is the telluric force in cosmic union, or freed thus in flight. It breathes life into its own force, making it generative unto itself, needing no other condition for survival. Thus, the emerald seal, which has been given to you to produce, is in its symbolic form. In actual radiance, it would resemble the symbolic, yet it would be of freer form, more like the crystal pattern of an iton, which is the purest of atomic particles within the third universe, that which is known to you. The seal has been given to Stella Solaris, so that the benefaction of the emerald ray is released in presence therein. Okay, Stella Solaris, the name Thoth gave to the first level of the temple I work within. It is now in the level given as Marian. Oh boy, well, this was a long time ago, and things were, developing. And as they developed, all the forms and the energies became simpler, purer. It's still not simple, to our own minds, but this was the way it began. And the wording, as difficult as it was attempting to capture some of these higher principles. And as my ability developed to understand these, how to work with this, the opening became more fluid and recognizable to my human mind. So it wasn't so difficult to understand. However, that said, reading this, you can see that if you really studied it, whoever has time for that, you could really understand some things in here that he's really not communicated to me since, that are deep principles. I mean, I'm seeing that as I'm reading it again after all this time. So what you're looking at here is a very poor reproduction of my original drawing. And I'm not even sure where the original drawing is, if I even have it anymore. I've moved so many times. We're talking about, back in the 70 something. I don't know what year it was now, but it was a long time ago. So there it is. And as he said, this is just a representation that he gave me at that time. You really can't see it very well, but I wanted to show that to you because we have other representations coming up here. Uh-oh, I didn't switch my screen share. I'm sorry, this happens to me so often on this. You have to switch the screen share. So I'm going to do that right now so you can actually see it. Okay, so now you can see the very poor representation or resolution of the scan that I did years ago of the artwork that I don't know where it is anymore, but there it is. This is the artwork that I originally did of the emerald seal of Thoth. And it's just, very simple. I'm not that skilled at what I call organic art, but this is how it turned out. And I want to show you now the progression of it, because recently Thoth gave me new versions. Of course, now I have all the software and the ability to create things that are a little more impressive than this. But still, energetically, that was the first version. So this I did just the other day. Now, this is very simple, And oh, this is not the first one though. I wanted to show the other one first. Okay, this is the one that has numbers involved. And these are just fonts that he had me choose to work with this. The symbols of the eyes and then the numbers in there. Obviously, it looks very different from the other, and it does not. What he was describing was in regard to that other image with the spheres and everything. So the other image is attempting to look at it from a heavenly perspective, from a very literal perspective of this does this and this is connected to that and whatever. This one is more of a psionic energy. So here you have the numerics that all these frequencies boil down to, or at least one set of numerics that they boil down to. And the diagram, the basic diagram that plugs you in, excuse me, to that dimension. Now I want to go to another one. So here we have that all interpreted in symbols. Now the symbols that are used, he didn't want me to hand draw the symbols. He wanted to use fonts, and often he does that. There are a lot of fantasy fonts, ancient language fonts, whatever, and he often has me use those, which are, he says, these particular fonts, the different ones that he's collected for me, they can be overlaid with the proper energy. That's the way he puts it, sort of like that. So he didn't want the original symbols. See, this outline here of the triangle within the circle and the little triangle inside and all of that, this was actually used, printed, according to him, in books and things about Thoth. He didn't do it, of course, but it represented the emerald seal of Thoth energetically. And there were symbols in here, ancient symbols, that he did not want put into here because he said it would be too powerful, time wasn't right, whatever. But these aren't just filler symbols. They're imbued with the proper energy to form certain frequency here. But it's just not that impactful that the original would be. So I try to make these as simple as possible, like they might have been just drawn in some book or papyrus text or whatever. Not a book, but some kind of papyrus, I guess, which could form a book. And so that is how that looks. Now these symbols, this one and the other one that you saw, can be used as templates to interact with the frequencies of the emerald seal, which is not just those little logo. Obviously, from what I just read to you, whether we understood it or not, you can tell there's quite a lot to it. And so he's saying that it could be beneficial simply to attune to that Thothic frequency, which is really not just Thoth, but the whole bandwidth of his working stream, I guess you'd say, if one wanted to do that. And I think it would be beneficial, even if you're not a big Thoth fan, if you're working with the kind of energies that is being projected through the Thothic stream, this would be a good way to integrate them more fully into your experience. Okay, now we have another one I want to show you. Now this I love. This one I just completed, and with Thoth's guidance, and this is sort of the New Earth version, okay? This is something to take you into the stream of the Thothic, what we're calling Thoth. This isn't just a term that's being used because it was a prime incarnation of his that I connect to and I'm working through, but actually he's given me the name of Ushael for the highest level of his soul experience. But that's just a word too, And so this emblem, as you see it now, is the New Earth, or the Ascension Consciousness version that's brought us up to this time now. It's certainly come a long way from the little sketch of my feathered serpent thing to this. But this has all the potency of all of these combined, taking it into the new earth frequency. And I truly believe it, because I know I'm more connected to Thoth than most people, so probably it's going to affect me more than, you who are looking at it now. But to me, when I finished this and I looked at it, I went, oh my God, because to me it just like totally synced with my vibratory frequency. So, and I said that's more of a personal thing, but still for anyone, I feel this would be a powerful frequency to use and to look at. So here it is in the video. Now, I mean, you can do a screenshot of this and use it on your desktop or whatever. But for portal members, I am putting into the portal where you can get it, the 3000 DPI version, very high version. So you ought to be able to print this in a very large print if you wanted to, for your wall or above your altar or whatever. And so if it really gets to you like it does me, you might want to do that. Okay, let me see what comes next here. And so I asked if there was any further information on this now in 2017 that Thoth might wish to impart about the whole seal, emerald seal of Thoth frequency. And he's saying just to be aware that it contains one of the pillars, one of the threefold pillars of creation of our earth dimension realm. Not just the dimension we're in now, but all the dimensions that compose it. And this, with this emblem, it also contains the frequency of the ascension module, so to speak, into the new earth consciousness. So it's all of those combined. But not just the symbol. We're talking about the whole energy product, I guess you would say, that comes through that stream. So if it's one of the three, I asked what the other two are. And I received Osiris and Isis. Again, we're not just dealing with the archetypes here. These are words, but they contain, a lead-in to the energy streams that he's speaking of. And so, for now at least, I think I will conclude with this particular presentation. Thank you for listening and watching.